Alright, so today's video we're going to be talking about something that people don't really talk about as much as you would like. We're going to be talking about enumerate and zip. So firstly, let's look at the problem enumerate actually solves. Let's say you're looping over a list and you need the item and its actual position in the list. Let's say we have a list of names. A typical way you'd usually do this is for n in names, then you print n. But this gives only the names, but it doesn't give you the position. So people then invent a counter for it. So you can define maybe I is going to be equal to 0, and for n in names, you now want to print I and n, and you just keep incrementing I as you go on. So this works, but you may now encounter issues when you start working with things like the continue statement, which we explained in detail in the previous video I uploaded, so you can check that on my page. Or you may loop over the position instead, using something like for I in range, then the length of the list you are looking into, and then you want to print I and print names with that index. So it'll be names square I to get the index. The It's just fetching items from a list using its index. But a better approach would be to now use the enumerate function, which is just going to say for I and n in enumerate the list name, print I and n. Enumerate gives positions without you having to manage a separate counter. And in Python, counting starts from 0, but as a human, your counting will usually start from 1. And sometimes when you want to print, let's say we are printing the list of names, you may want to have the actual number. We are not going to start numbering the list of names from 0. We're going to want to start with 1. A way you can do that is to use for I and n in enumerate, then you just pass in the parentheses the name of the list, which in this case is names, and we're going to pass a second argument 1, and then we're going to now print using a formatted string I and n, however you wish to arrange it. This will now start the counting from 1. That is just a quick overview of enumerate. Secondly, we want to now look at the problem zip solves. Let's say you have two lists that belong together, so maybe a list of names and a list of scores, and you want to pair them together. One approach is doing like for I in range the length of names, print names and scores using I as to like index the position where you are at. If the scores are shorter than names, it's going to raise an index error. And yes, I know you can now put this into a try and except block to catch that index error and now print out a custom error so your program doesn't crash. But a better approach is using zip. So you can just do for n and s in zip. In your parentheses, you're going to pass the two lists you want to pair, and then you just print n and s. This will run, and any name will just be pairing them together. So if there's a name that now doesn't have like a score, maybe the names list is longer than that of the score, it just ignores it. But what if you created both lists with the intention that both of them were meant to match? That is, you're saying you're expecting 10 items in lists, 10 items in names. What is it? 10 items in names, 10 items in scores, and your program just ends silently. You do not know like this has happened. And imagine if we were working with like 1,000, a million lists. There's no way for you to go and start cross checking it. So you may want to be informed or to be told if your list was inaccurate. One way you can now do this is passing an added argument into your zip parameter. So let's say you have zip, you're now passing, you have names, scores, which are the two lists we're pairing, and then we're going to pass an argument that is strict equals to true. So it will print everything. Then once it reaches the place where one of the lists doesn't have like a matching pair, you now say it will return something like value error, zip argument 2 is shorter than argument 1. Then if this is just a side one, if you were to do zip and you were to assign that into a variable, let's say z is equals to zip names and scores, and you printed it out. If you print it out the first time, it's going to print out the pair. But if you print it out the second time, it's going to be empty. This is because the machine generates the pairs, hands them over at that first time when you print it, and then it's spent. So when you print it the second time, it's completely ignored. This is because zip never holds anything or everything in memory. It only holds the current pair. But if you need it more than once, you can capture it inside a list. So you now have z is equals to list, then in parentheses zips, then in parentheses the two list you are planning on pairing. So hopefully this has introduced you to zip and enumerate, or it has at least explained it further if you've come across it when you were learning. Because the moment I was learning programming, when I saw it, once it started looking complain, it's like too complicated. I didn't really focus much on learning it because in my mind I'm like, I wouldn't really use this. I would just use the normal loops and everything that already works for it and just find a way to bypass any error I may get. But now you know it, now you understand it, now you're more memory efficient. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.